welcome to this edition of Brand Buzz with me, Ankita Saxena. Well, this is the show where we speak to top brand managers about the changing consumer dynamics, their evolving marketing strategies, and how are they reorienting themselves to the changing landscape. Well, recently, the finance minister announced a big booster shot for the consumption to pick up with a tax relief of up to 12 lakh rupees. Now, this is likely to move the needle for consumption that has been languishing for the last 1 year. Well, in this episode, our guest is from one of India's leading consumer companies, Ashwin Moorthy, who's the CMO of Godrej Consumer Products Limited, joining us to talk to us about his expectations of consumption pickup, post the budgetary boost, GCPL's marketing strategies, and much more. Let's welcome on board Ashwin. Hi Ashwin, thank you so much for joining us today. So Ashwin, recently the FM has announced in the budget a big tax relief for the middle class in the form of, tax relief of up to rupees 12 lakh rupees. How do you see this impacting consumption? People are saying, analysts expect the needle for consumption to start moving now. Since it has been languishing for a while, for the last 1 year, consumption has been languishing, especially the urban consumption has been a point of concern. How do you see that picking up, and how is this big boost likely to impact your business?
Yeah, I think there is a consensus in the industry that some of that 1 lakh crore will flow into FMCG consumption. I think for us, it's sort of continuing to do what we do on category development, making sure that our brands are marketed well to consumers, because there is in all categories a sort of macro and a micro. Micros, the actions that marketers do in order to drive penetration growth and category development. And then if the macros help, then you generally tend to get an upside. So I think we'll wait and watch and see what sort of upside we get. But of course, our actions continue as planned.
Right, Ashwin, speaking of the slowdown in consumption, what have been your challenges as a marketer? Rural is growing ahead of urban, even for all FMCG companies such as yours. Rural is picking up more than the urban consumption. What have led to the slowdown in the urban consumption, and when do you see that normalizing?
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess. From our perspective, we are growing faster in rural than urban. Having said that, some of our categories have been doing well, which are urban categories as well. For example, we're seeing in our laundry business, liquid detergents, quite an urban category is doing quite well. Our air care business is doing quite well. So I wouldn't really want to comment on sort of consumption overall, but within our business, we are seeing this year the rural is outgrowing urban, but there are categories where market development invention are going on that are also doing well, having said that.
Right. Ashwin, also category development is a major focus area for Godrej Consumer Products across categories. So tell us, what are the key initiatives that you have undertaken, and how has that panned out for you?
Yeah. No, thanks, Anki. That's a good question. We call out fundamental strategy is developing categories in India. And if you look at the way our portfolio is, the majority of our portfolio has penetrations lesser than even 70%, and also per capita consumptions that are much lesser than what they should be. So the majority of our focus, whether it be in innovation or on spending, is on really building categories in India. And some of the successes we've had that we continue pursuing is air care is one, I think, major call out where we've seen that India is now really picking up in terms of penetration on air care, but all as a result of investments that we made in innovations like Air Pocket, Air Matic. They've all scaled up quite well. More recently, this year, we launched Aero into the market, which is a car hanging. And when you go around, you'll see a lot of cars which have Aero dangling. So I think the building of fragrances in living spaces in India is sort of a classic case of category development. You build relevance, and as more consumers become aware and they try you, they're delighted by good products and they keep sort of buying. The second we've seen is in hair colors. We've seen that while the category penetration is decent, about mid 50s, our hair creme business is growing in penetration, largely because of continued investment in relevance behind an access pack that we launched a year and a half ago, 15 rupees, and consumers are upgrading to that access pack. So, two cases where we've seen that the right pricing, the right innovation helped with media. really is able to drive penetration and build categories in the country.
Right. Ashwin, amid the slowdown in consumption, what have been your strategies? What have been your campaigns and communication?
Yeah, I think so. We are quite a large spender on media. We are in terms of probably that, and certainly in the top five on TV advertising and the top seven or eight in total advertising in India. So we spend a lot of money in helping consumers learn about the products, finding them relevant, and driving trial. Some of the campaigns we've done recently is in laundry liquids. We introduced Godrej Fab to the market, and the advertising there was. Really around efficacy of laundry liquids and prevention of sort of a removal of stain. We've also advertised quite heavily on air care and even premium condoms in India, which is a category that we recently acquired. And we're seeing that do quite well also. So I think a lot of the advertising impetus has been on really how do we build relevance for our brands and how do we build awareness for new innovations, be they incense sticks or aero or creme.
Right. Also, Ashwin, with a boost to consumption in the budget, the pickup is expected more on the premium end of consumption. That's what the analysts are expecting. What about premiumization then? How at GCPL are you looking at catering to consumers in the premium category?
Yeah, I think again, it's a good question. A lot of our categories have urban penetrations that are also sort of low. And if I take some of our sort of major categories, we're seeing good growths in like laundry liquids, air fresheners, um, many sort of insecticides, even in things like hair color. There is an upside on urban penetration and per capita that India should see with time, and if that accelerates, then I think it's good for us. But our interventions also are always on sort of making sure that we're well invested behind brands, so that when consumers do have an inclination to adopt new categories, adopt new habits, change lifestyles, we will come first to mind, and our products will serve that need better than others in the market. So that's sort of what we're going to do in case the consumption upside does come.
Ashwin, tell us, how are you leveraging tech and AI in marketing to drive better results? Because every company, every marketing department is now looking towards AI to drive better ROI on their marketing spends.
Yeah, I think it'll completely change the way marketing is done. And I think there are very many ways to look at tech. I think that it starts with sort of building good algorithms and algorithmic decision making. Second is the ability now to use data that is a lot more fragmented and different levels of accuracy than it were in the past. And triangulating this data is quite a hard thing to do. And the third, of course, is how do you use AI to shorten uh, a lot of the marketing processes, whether they be across, I think the time will come when we'll see a lot of upside on AI and advertising. We're seeing cases of, uh, creation that AI is able to do of a decent quality. I don't know if it's gotten there yet. It may take some time for it to come there yet. But what I certainly see is the implementation of data in algorithmic decision making processes like media, for example. Like I think we have a very strong media department here run by Harsh Chabra, and a lot of it is today done by tech. Media decisions are empirical decisions; they are algorithmic, data-driven decisions. So, we're seeing tech in media. We're seeing the use of AI in the purchase of media, be it digital media in particular, is quite strong. We are seeing the use of algorithmic decision making in marketing diagnosis, which earlier was done, quite manually through multiple Excel sheets. We're seeing that systems are able to make this a lot more faster and a lot more accurate. So I think, Ankita, it will change very rapidly many of these marketing processes, and we'll find with time, brand teams will become more intelligent and more solution oriented, and AI will do a lot of the stuff that was more routine faster. And the time may come when it makes creation and sort of better decision making. but the time is not too far away. We're seeing AI is pretty good at a lot of the stuff that we didn't know it could do.
Right. Ashwin also talked to us about this space that has really heated up, and that's the 10-minute deliveries. That's really hot and happening right now. As a consumer company, a 10-minute delivery versus a brick and mortar store, what is driving sales for you, and has your communication been impacted as a result of that?
No, the view we have is basically we serve consumers, and we have to make our products available where consumers shop. And that naturally moves. So while channels develop, I mean, all channels for us are important. So general trade is important. It's one of the largest chunks of consumption. Modern trade, retail, brick and mortar is important. E-com is important. And similarly, quick com has become more and more relevant, more important as more consumers adopt that habit. And things do change in terms of assortments change, pricing strategy, etc. Also needs to be sort of for that consumer, for the consumption occasion tailored. You have to innovate in terms of what products will suit a certain channel. So all those do happen, but the broad perspective is that wherever consumers are accessing our categories, our products need to be available at the right price, and with the right level of sort of visibility in that platform. So what was a shelf in GT and general trade in the past and even today is in quick commerce really being strong on things like, do you come up in searches? Are you priced right? Are you participating in events? Are you able to get good category captaincy? So those ways of managing shopper delight become more and more important as channels fragment.
Right. Ashwin, also as a result, does digital advertising command a larger chunk of your advertising pie? What is the media spend strategy for you?
It's a larger chunk than it used to be. So in that sense, as more and more consumers, so we look at media in terms of basically consumer consumption, which is where are we more likely to reach more consumers for a certain level of media spend. So we call it reach-based planning or sophisticated mass marketing because we have brands which are fairly large in terms of their reach targets. We were doing category development or you're doing, sort of salience in a category like soaps. We're talking about very large numbers of consumers that have to be reached. And hence, you have to lean into media that are going to give you that scale of consumer reach. And we still find that TV does a really good job of that. And so, TV is still the majority of our spends is television advertising. But we are seeing that a lot of consumer time is moving to digital, whether it is connected TV, which is in many homes replacing a lot of the consumption on cable, or if it is indeed mobile, which in many markets, mobile has outstripped the penetration of TV as well. So you can't reach consumers if you're not there on mobile. And whether that's video or that's social, etc., is an outcome of what the consumption is in that market. So using sort of a sense on where consumers are spending their time and the cost of reaching them at scale is how we arrive at that sort of our core media philosophy. So yes, as consumers naturally spend more time on digital, the efficiency of that spend will go up.
Right. Ashwin, also, what is your vision for 2025? You've just started with the year. What are the new campaigns in the pipeline? What are the new product launches?
I mean, new launches will come as they do, but I think for us, the strategy remains at the heart, which is, we want to grow our brands by growing penetration, getting more consumers to find them relevant, getting more consumers to find them visible and available, and build categories for the longer term is really what I hope continues into 2025. And as you said, if there is a upside on macro that does come through, and the consensus seems to be that they will, that should aid as well. I mean, yeah, we keep refreshing advertising, so as and when they land, they will. But we have a lot of innovations that have done quite well for us, which we're looking to expand. Like, we're quite happy with how Aero is done, how air fresheners is performed. We're quite happy with some of the innovations that we have on, for example, Good Night. We have a new molecule that went in, Renofluthrin, and we're quite keen to see that expand. So I think there's a lot that we have going on, and just being disciplined behind those outcomes being driven at scale is something that's going to be a lot of focus for us.
Also, Ashwin, what are the categories that are driving growth for GCPL and what are your key markets?
We're fairly national, Ankita. So we sell across channels across the country. Um, 78% of India's households have at least one GCPL product a year. And in terms of share, if you look at purchases, which is any product purchased by any consumer, that's about 2 billion. So we have a very large number of transactions that happen between our brands and consumers. So we operate at very large scales. There's only a very small number of consumers who don't use any of our products. And one is, of course, to reach those households that haven't been served yet by one of the products of our company. And again, our focus will remain on wherever there is penetration to be had, wherever categories can be developed. You'll see us investing in that sort of space um, as we have been doing currently as well.
Right. Ashwin, finally, what have been your learning as a marketer, especially amid a consumption slowdown where you really had to pull up your socks? What have been your learnings as a marketer and what would be your advice to marketers?
Yeah, I mean, again, a wonderful question. I think marketing has been well served by a lot of work that's happened over the last decade and a half by various sort of thinkers and researchers across the world. Um, I think for a while, marketing, even now today, one can argue, doesn't really have a standard set of rules. I think many disciplines like finance, even operations, there are like a very standard set of rules that you sort of start with. Marketing often becomes very principle led and sometimes even philosophical, which is there are marketers who will, and that's why marketing has so much debate in it, which is equity versus performance is a debate, reach versus impact is a debate, high price, low scale, low price, high scale is a debate. So I think like marketing has a lot of these uh, questions that people sort of take positions on. But for me as a marketer in the last particularly decade, I've seen a lot of empirical work being done that's coming into market, which I think is really good for marketing. That there are indeed some immutable laws of how brands grow, how advertising works, how media effectiveness can be increased, or what the right pricing sort of approach is. That I feel is made the profession a lot richer in terms of it being sort of a serious rule-based profession rather than really over-indexed on opinion or on heuristics or anecdotes. So I think being a more, I would say, well-learned marketer has been my big learning in the last decade.
All right, on that note, Ashwin, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us for that insightful interview. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Brand Buzz. I'll see you same time next week with another interesting conversation with a marketer. Stay tuned.